Okay, welcome. Hello, hello. Okay, we're gonna wait for, we have a few people coming in. I'm just making sure everything's up and running on Facebook. Looks like it is. Hold on. All right, we are good to go. I lost you again, Jody. Too many windows open.
I'm just hanging out in the background.
Yeah. Okay, all right, let's get this thing rolling. All right, so welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. If you don't know me, my name is Renee Roberts, and I am your host for this evening, and I am a functional nutrition counselor and a registered hypnotherapist and founder of Nourish to Live RX. And I help you navigate the minefield that is menopause and perimenopause, and so you can feel amazing and thrive for the rest of your life. So that's what I do. And I'm going to introduce my guest speaker, Jody, in a minute, but I just want to go through a few logistics first. So feel free to type in the chat any questions you have. Let us know where you're dialing in from or connecting from. You can also ask questions in the Q&A box, and feel free to ask during Jody's presentation, and I will keep an eye on them for her. And if you would like to come on live and ask a question via audio, you are more than welcome to do that. And you can just raise your hand and I will bring you on so you can actually ask a question live. So without further ado, let me introduce Jody. So Jody is our guest speaker for this evening, and she is going to delve into all things sugary and not so sweet. So Jody is a certified health and life coach, and she's passionate about helping midlife women who feel down inside that something is missing. So Jody, I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to hand it over to you. You can tell them a little bit about yourself and your story, and then go ahead and get into your talk. And I will keep an eye on the chat, and I will keep it. We are live in Facebook as well, so I'll keep an eye on Facebook as well. So
Okay,
thank you
perfect.
for joining.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me, Renee. So as Renee mentioned, I'm a certified health and life coach, and I'm based out of Southwestern Ontario, not too far actually from Renee. We're about, an hour apart or so in terms of the cities we are in. And I have a huge want to, I'm a midlife woman, and the reason that I actually went into coaching is because I suddenly realized, Renee, that midlife brings like a whole array of different things to your life that you can't even plan for it.
I
So
know,
as you
right?
mentioned, we're talking like menopause and that sort of thing, but we're also talking, aging parents. We're talking about our own aging bodies. We're talking, dealing with, all of a sudden we have to think about retirement. And that was never anything, through our younger years that we really had to think about. And I just find that what they say is true, that as we get older, it can be more difficult to be healthy. And it's solely because everything is changing within your body. There's different hormones that are dropping to the wayside. Other hormones are kind of ramping up. Like testosterone, for example, we become more manly, which isn't true, but it is one of the hormones that kind of increases, and some of our female hormones kind of decrease. So I thought a good topic to speak about, especially at this time of our life, is sugar, because I do think in our younger years, we're able to eat things and do things and drink things and not exercise without thinking about the consequences, because when you're younger, your metabolism's fairly ramped up, you're busy, you're doing stuff. But when you kind of hit that midlife plateau, let's call it, you might start to notice how these foods are actually impacting you negatively. So for example, for my own story, several years ago, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And nobody quite knew at the time what it was. But through the years, I have discovered that it actually wasn't, I guess you would say, that like the true fibromyalgia diagnosis. What it was my eating habits. And what was happening is I was eating so poorly, and I was not exercising, and I was going through a very stressful time in my life. And all of my joints were basically like seizing up. I was so sore, Renee, trying to get out of bed in the morning. I had all of those specific points of fibromyalgia that really hurt if somebody touched me there. It would be so painful. That's why the diagnosis came. But at one point in my life, and I didn't equate the two, but at one point in my life, I did cut out sugar and grains. And what ended up happening is my body started to heal after years and years and years of abuse of not watching what I was eating. So I've gone through my lifetime. I'm 51 now, and through my lifetime, I've gone through these, where I'm quite overweight, and then I kind of get things back in control, and then life happens, right? And I kind of spiral out again and then get back in control. But it was when I specifically cut out the sugar and grains, that I suddenly realized, I don't feel like I have fibromyalgia anymore. And then in speaking with my medical team, they started to agree that it was probably a reaction to what sugar was doing to my body. So let's get into exactly what that means. And this presentation is the not so sweet truth about sugar, because my God, it tastes delicious, but the havoc it can wreak on your poor body may not be worth it after you learn what I'm about to tell you. So Renee, can I just confirm with you that you can see my screen and
Yes.
Everything is clear for you? Okay.
Yep, everything is good.
Move our little, I can see you and myself here. So many of you might know that sugar comes by so many different names. And so even when we're reading labels, like a lot of us in midlife start to do, you may not recognize that some of these things are actual sugars, that your body processes them in the same kind of format that they do with traditional white sugar. So you can see the list. I won't go through them all. This is only a few of the over 50 different names that sugar can go by. And, a lot of people do feel that they're doing this, they're giving them all these different names solely to kind of slip it under the radar because of a lot of our so-called healthy snacks that companies are pushing as being healthy. If you look into them more closely, you'll start to recognize some of these names as being actual sugar. So granted, some of them are more of a natural basis than others, but it's still sugar. So you need to, if you're sensitive to sugar, you need to kind of watch out for some of those names. So yeah, if you look at this kind of, the health kind of, they have the ingredients, and then they have the health breakout, right, in terms of sugar, carbohydrates, and all that sort of thing. So you can see there how many sugars are in the serving, but you also want to be looking at the actual ingredients. That's where you'll see all these really weird names. Like this one, Pinoca. I don't even know how to say it, but I didn't know it was sugar. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't know it was sugar. So I found it
never heard of that one either. Actually.
You have to be so careful. I mean, thank goodness for cell phones now. You can just stand in the grocery store and, Google what is this, but yeah, all of these different sugars, there's currently over 50 different kinds of sugars that go into our food, our processed food for the most part. So sugar in all of its forms, some of you may be wondering, what is it? Is it a carb? Is it a protein? Like, what is it? Is it nothing? Like, is it just empty, nothing calories? But in all of its forms, it's a simple carbohydrate. And Renee, I know that you have a background in nutrition. So feel free to, to join in with this discussion, or if you even see anything that you've heard or seen differently.
Okay.
But sugar in all forms is a simple carbohydrate. So natural sugars are found in fruit, or fructose. So anytime you see that word fructose, it means it's like a fruit sugar. Dairy products are lactose. And many people that I've come across have lactose intolerance. And that's almost like it's a sugar intolerance to the lactose in dairy. Refined sugar is your traditional white sugar, which I think is probably the most used sugar, both in our own homes as well as in all the products that that you're buying from the store. So processed foods, processed foods are never a great idea, you guys. In moderation, it's fine, but just be aware that when you're eating processed foods, it's not necessarily real food. And what they're doing is they're inserting flavor by adding sugar and that sort of thing, and other like chemicals. There's chemicals in it to keep it fresh, all that sort of thing. So you have to be aware that when you are subbing out real food and you're buying something processed, which we all do, just be aware, of what you're eating, because you can even make choices on your processed food. Some are way worse than others are. So what they do is, several years ago, you probably remember as well, Renee, is that it was the low fat craze. Everything
Yep.
was low fat. Every product out there that had ever been like deliciously natural became low fat. So they extracted the fat out of it. And yes, you could lose weight, but they inserted chemicals and sugar, because when you extract the fat from something, the natural fats from something, you are actually stripping it of the actual flavor, the natural flavor. So there's a whole nother discussion that we could have on fats and what are good fats and bad fats and that sort of thing. But just take, for example, yogurt. I love yogurt, and I tried so hard, Renee, to love the low fat yogurt, and I couldn't do it. It tasted watery and awful. And so I just went back to my normal fat yogurts, and I was so much happier. But surprisingly enough, I was also so much fuller. So I wasn't starving, right? After a half an hour of eating my yogurt.
And it's actually healthier because you're getting the fat from it and less sugar. You still have a lot of sugar in yogurt though, but there still is a lot of sugar in yogurt, but
yes.
Not as much as the fat-free or low-fat yogurt for sure.
Yeah. And again, you'd actually probably be the person to do a presentation on fats, because it was such a learning curve for me over the years, as I learned that fat wasn't bad for us. Because in our generation, and if you ladies watching our midlife generation, it'll have been the same thing that you heard kind of through your lifetime is, if you want to control your weight, stay away from fat. But no one ever clarified at the time what that meant. So, and low fat cheese, not nice, not nice at all. It wasn't even worth eating. So yeah, if you look into what fats are good and what are bad, and how fats can actually help you lose weight, then it's a really interesting topic. We won't get into any more of that because we're kind of focusing on sugar today. One of the questions that I myself used to ask is, does your body process all sugars equally? Because you'll see there's a picture of a bunch of sugar-coated jelly beans or gummy bears and an apple. So one would believe that your body is going to process the apple differently than the gummy bears. And in a sense, this is true, because when you consume an apple, you're also getting all of the nutrients, vitamins, fiber, and all that sort of thing that comes with the apple. But with the gummies, it's all fake. It's not real food. This is a processed food that has been thrown together with a bunch of different preservatives and sugars that aren't natural to your body. So when you ask that question, are they processed the same? It's not a black and white answer. So the reason that I went to a specific website to get the correct wording for this, because I wanted to make sure that I was passing on the exact correct information. So this information comes from the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. And what they say is that how the body metabolizes the sugar in fruit and milk differs from how it metabolizes the refined sugar added to processed foods. The body breaks down refined sugar rapidly, and it causes your insulin and your blood sugars to spike. So many of you are aware of that, the highs and the lows that you have through your day. If you're eating sugar, you might have that 2 o'clock slump, anywhere between 2 and 3 p.m. I find a lot of people are dying for a nap at that point. And that has a lot to do with how you're eating and when you're eating, and what you're eating. So because refined sugar is digested quickly, like the gummy bears, you don't feel full after you've consumed them, no matter how many handfuls that you consume. But the fiber in that apple is going to slow down the metabolism and keep you fuller, feeling fuller longer. So overall, you're going to end up eating less if you're listening to your body. But there's a caveat, because once the sugar passes through your stomach and reaches the small intestines, it doesn't matter if it came from an apple or a soft drink. How much sugar is already in your blood will determine how the body is going to use that sugar, whether it's from the apple or from the gummies. If you already have a lot of sugar in your system, then what you've just eaten is going to form either as a fat or a glycogen. And it's the storage form of glucose that is used for quick energy. And it doesn't matter if it's junk food or fruit. So you can see how it sort of does process these two items the same, but there's still benefit in eating that apple because your body eventually is going to be treating it differently. Still a bit confusing. Always pick the apple over the gummy bears. We'll put it that way. That's a really simple way of talking about this slide. And does anyone have any questions yet, Renee? Is there any questions in the chat or on
Nope.
Facebook?
We are good.
We're good, yeah. So when we're consuming sugar, a lot of people are wondering what's happening, right? In terms of kind of the science behind it. We know in our own minds that it tastes good, and it can make you feel great for a short period of time. That's why there's almost a sugar addiction, so to speak. So the sugar that you ingest, it gets broken down in your small intestines to glucose, which we talked about in the last slide. And then it's released into your bloodstream. And that's when it converts to energy for your muscles and your organs. So the pancreas monitors your glucose levels and it releases insulin to control it. Some of you might be familiar with the word insulin because when we're talking about diabetes, insulin is a huge factor when it comes to diabetes. So diabetes is 100% affected by your sugar highs and lows. When you become overweight from consuming too much sugar, your cells can start to become resistant to insulin. And that's not good. That is bad news bears, that is. So even with your pancreas going into overdrive to produce more and more insulin to kind of counter how much sugar that you're ingesting, it's still not compensating for it. It's still not working. So it doesn't get processed. It floats around in your bloodstream. And if you've heard of the blood sugar level, when you might have been tested by your doctor, you might have had some blood tests for your blood sugar level, that sort of thing. That's where it's coming from, is the sugar is actually circulating into your bloodstream. So the higher your blood sugar level, the more risk you have of becoming type 2 diabetic. Diabetes runs in my family. It is a very threatening disease. The fallout from diabetes is something that probably not a lot of people know about unless you have it in your family or you know somebody that has it. It can be a heartbreaking disease because of the way it breaks your body down. So when you ask yourself, why can't I break this sugar habit? What is going on? Like I have the know-how. I know I shouldn't be doing this. And I have to be honest, Renee, I have struggled with this myself. And in fact, just recently I've been struggling again. So I shared with you before the webinar that I had COVID and that I've been suffering from long COVID, and it has really changed the way that my body works. And the hardest thing on me has been just sheer exhaustion. So the times that I used to spend moving, doing exercise, playing with my son, all that kind of stuff, I am now spending sleeping to get through the day. So what has happened is that's cut back on my movement. And so the weight has come on and my body just wants comfort food, if that's what you want to call it. But once you get back on that sugar train, it can be very hard to get off of it again. So I wasn't consuming sugar for a good 4 years, if not more. And once I started to consume it again, I'm back into that cycle of not so much the peaks and valleys, because I don't eat a ton of it, but more, the soreness in my joints and the tiredness. Like it's affecting that long COVID even more so than if I would cut it out again. So everything is kind of ramped up even more than it normally would be if I do have sugar. So for those of you who are struggling to get off the sugar train, I get it. I've been there more than once in my life, but it's always worth trying again. I believe that anything is worth trying again. People who want to quit smoking, it often takes the average person like 6 to 8 times to actually do it for life. I know in my husband's case that was true. And eating sugar is the same thing. So if you want to know why this is so hard to break this habit, is because, in a sense, sugar has the same sort of effects on your body as some drugs do. So in a sense, it quite literally is addictive. So when you eat sugar, it releases opioids and dopamine in your body. And that makes you feel like you can fly. That makes you feel fantastic. So you go on this little bit of a sugar buzz, this high. And I know what that's like because I kind of used to use it even in university when I had to write an exam. I would knock back some caffeine with like a good load of sugar in it. So then when I was writing that exam, I was on it. I was on the ball. I wasn't tired. I was processing everything. And then after the fact, you'd crash, right? So many of you know what that high feels like. You just feel like you could take on the world for about what, an hour, Renee, or so. If you even get that far, I don't know how long mine lasted, but so then your brain starts to adjust to this excess sugar and it's going to release less dopamine. So releasing less dopamine means that your high is not going to be as wonderful as when you started eating that sugar. So to compensate, you're going to have to consume more and more and more sugar to get that same sort of feeling that you used to get from just a little bit. And that's when, we see the weight gain and that sort of thing, because you will eat until you get that high. It's not you doing that consciously. Your body is doing that, saying, I want more of that. I feel good. And like I could do anything when you've had that sugar. So I wanted to share this little poll with you. So the poll question is, and you can answer in the chat because Renee can see what your answers are. So the poll question is, how much sugar does the average person consume per day? So you have a few different choices there. So you've got 9 teaspoons, and picture a teaspoon. I mean, many of you have teaspoons of sugar in your coffee or your tea. So 9 teaspoons, 15 teaspoons, 26 teaspoons, or 37 teaspoons. So just take a moment and look at those choices there.
I think I know the answer, but I'm not gonna answer.
You probably do. As somebody who's just recently done, some sugar talks, this one might be pretty easy for you.
Yeah. Oh, Dorothy says D.
Says what? Sorry?
D. As in 37 teaspoons.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a long presentation, so I'm just going to hop on to the next screen here. And you ready? It's 26.
Oh, C. I would have said D, actually.
Yeah. So this is, now keep in mind, so this is from diabetes.ca. So this is from a Canadian site. I do know that when I was looking at the American sites that they actually do consume more sugar.
I think they do more. Yeah, because when I did a talk on sugar, I think I was using US stats.
Yes. Yeah. I've kind of done a mix depending on what I'm looking for here. But Dorothy, are you Canadian or American? If you can share in the chat, that would be great, just to kind of get an idea. And then it looks like there's another something else in the chat there too, Renee.
I don't see anything else.
Oh, let me see if I can see it.
There we go. She's American.
Okay. Yeah. So that could
probably
actually
right, Dorothy.
Yeah. Let's see here. It looks like.
I think it's close. When I'm trying to think of the stats that I used in my presentation, it was pretty high. But I don't think I was doing it per day. I was doing it per year, and I was doing it in pounds. And I remember
that's always like a harsh visual, that one.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the pictures of like an annual amount of sugar that people, that's harsh to see that.
Compared to and I compared it to broccoli, which was like 5 pounds a year, and sugar was like hundreds of pounds. It was insane.
It's awful to think about. When you're doing it on a daily basis, it doesn't seem
terrible, and you don't know, right? It's hidden. It's not that we're all eating sugar, like the white sugar. It's just it's in the foods. Crazy.
So Diabetes Canada recommends no more than 12 of free sugars in a day. So free sugars don't include like fresh fruits and veggies, but they do include some natural sugars like honey syrup and fruit juices. So that's kind of like they're the added sugar, right? They're not saying to cut back on your fresh fruits and veggies and stuff, because I don't think a carrot has ever killed anybody before. So these are your like added, syrups and fruit juices and that sort of thing, because they can be very high in sugar. And And I know that we feel healthier drinking or eating some of those things. Like, let's say we're choosing honey over processed sugar. So yes, again, it is the better choice of the two, but your body is still going, the honey will jack your sugar, like your levels, as natural, as processed, like refined sugar. It'll have a similar effect on you. So when we talked about diabetes in a few slides ago there, I'd mentioned how serious of a disease that it is. And it can be controlled somewhat. It depends if a person is like pre-diabetic or if they've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. But in terms of my family, a lot of these symptoms, and complications are very familiar to me in terms of my family member. So, and actually just even in terms of people I've been in touch with through my coaching life, there was one gal that her vision, and I don't know if I'm saying it right, but retinopathy. Can you help me with that, Renee? Is that right?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So it is like your eyes are actually affected from diabetes. So you can ultimately, if you're not taking care of yourself and your diabetes, you can ultimately lose your vision. Excessive urination, because everything is in overdrive. Your poor kidneys, they're just trying to process all this poison, otherwise known as sugar. It's trying to process it all. So they're just excessively trying to clean everything out, as is, your liver as well. Excessive thirst, because you are urinating so much, and fatigue, that kind of up and down becomes very serious, and the fatigue gets to be almost unmanageable. The complications of type 2 diabetes, gum disease, the teeth are not in great shape, but specifically the gums. Kidney disease, again, because your poor kidneys are like in overdrive trying to save your body. Neuropathy, stroke. And again, these all hit home for me. This family member that I have has had a stroke, has not so much heart disease, but a lot of these other kind of issues. The fatigue for sure, sleeps constantly. Basically, when it comes down to it, you guys, it is not a nice way to live. And it has to be controlled very, very carefully. Now, the good thing about science and technology is you can now, and again, if anybody watching has diabetes, you can now get, it can be connected to your phone. So you wear a patch and you get your phone, and it's linked to your phone, and it will read your blood sugar levels and that sort of thing. So you're not having to do the finger poke anymore. I don't know how expensive they are. I can't speak to them, but at least technology has come a little bit further to make life a little easier for people who suffer from diabetes. Again, terrible disease, because it's not just diabetes that you're dealing with, it's everything that is caused by having diabetes. Just move my little screen here. So overconsumption of sugar, even if we're not talking like so serious that it has led you to diabetes, it can still have some side effects that are not so fun. For me, again, it's pain in my joints, to the point where I would get out of bed and my feet would feel like glass, Renee. Like they would crack and like snap, kind of like almost like all the bones like trying to get back into place. Such a painful experience for years for me. And I thought I was going to have to live with it for my entire life. So imagine my joy after I'd given up sugar for, I think it was within probably 2 months that pain went away. Wow. So you can still have some troubles if you're having too much sugar. So for me, it was pain, like that. Acne, that's something else I've dealt with my whole life. And again, I didn't know. What you don't know, you don't know. You just accept certain things because there's certain stages in your life that's what happens. Like teenagers get acne. But mine was exacerbated by having almost like a sensitivity, I guess you could call it, to sugar. Irritability, definitely. If you're doing those highs and lows, you're going to get a bit cranky, right? High blood pressure, joint pain, exhaustion and low energy, because when you crash hard, and obviously weight gain. Weight gain and joint pain are my two biggies. If anyone is on chat there and has possibly consumed too much sugar in the past, what side effects have you had? Renee, have you ever gone through like a bout where you're a bit too sugared up?
Yeah, but I've never had a really severe addiction to sugar, but I know what you mean when you go, like for me, once I start, I want something sweet after each meal. And then
Yes.
you get that habit. And it's like, well, now I need something sweet every time I eat something. And
Bad habit. Yes, I agree.
yeah, it becomes a very bad habit because
Yeah.
you end up getting more, just like you said, then it doesn't satisfy as much. So then like you have more of, more sweets after it.
Yes.
But it's funny you mentioned the joint pain, because that's one of the things that I have been mentioning. Even sugar is a big one, but even if you're eating things that you're intolerant to and you may not be, you can get that joint pain because of the inflammation that it's causing in your
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've realized, that if I eat poorly, whether it's too much sugar or something that I'm intolerant to, I can feel it. I can feel it when I'm working out. I can feel it when I wake up in the morning. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, especially as I get older, right? Because,
Yes.
as we are in both midlife women, it's like, oh, it's just not the same like it was
It's
10, 20
not,
years ago. It's
and
like,
when
and
you
you
think
just
about
attribute it.
like how many years your body has been fighting to protect you, right? Like your kidneys and your liver and everything,
Mhm.
your body's going to get tired. So now,
Yeah.
when we're ingesting things that we probably shouldn't, or as you said, that you have a sensitivity to, because I have some as well, some sensitivities that do produce inflammation. Yeah, it takes a lot longer for it to work itself through my system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but that's the thing. That's not normal. And I've come to that conclusion as well, even though I've been doing, the nutrition stuff, the health stuff for a while. You forget. It's
Yes.
like, oh yeah, I'm just old. Well,
Yeah.
no, you don't have to feel this way.
Yeah. Yeah. You really
You're
do
not
have
supposed to
choices. You
feel
don't
this
have
way.
to feel so crummy.
Yeah.
And our bodies change as we age, and so should the way that we eat, to be honest. Like I never used to have sensitivities. Excuse me. I have sensitivities now, I should say, that I never used to have.
Yeah. Me too.
Or I've also discovered some sensitivities now that, looking back in retrospect, I'm like, oh, that explains a lot, right? I never, for dairy, for example, I never had tummy distress when I ingested dairy. I never had tummy distress at all. But there's been a couple of times where I've gotten very, very sick and blamed it on other things, only to realize after the fact that it was an overconsumption of dairy, especially soft dairy, right? Like either, milks, creams, creamy cheeses, stuff like that. So most of the time, just to share with you, is when I was, I'd be at a party and they'd have a charcuterie board. I love charcuterie. I love cheese. And so that was the dinner. There wouldn't be an actual dinner. So I'd have these cheeses and these meats and stuff, but I would feel so sick the next day, and it wouldn't equate with, that 2 glasses of wine I had. And so yeah, looking back, I'm like, okay, this explains a lot.
Yeah.
So just because you don't have an immediate reaction to something like, tummy distress or a headache or anything along that line, it doesn't mean that you're safe in the sense of not having sensitivities. If you
Yeah.
listen to your body, and even start journaling some of this stuff, you're going to start seeing the connections between what you ingest and how you feel.
Yeah.
I
Because
think
it can take a couple days to come
yes.
through.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I have heard that people who have, I have a bit of a sensitivity to gluten. It's not celiac by any means. I can't even imagine what the people who have been diagnosed with celiac go through, but I do have a sensitivity. And I've talked to some people who have probably, I'd say, a more severe sensitivity than I do. And when they have had gluten, possibly without even knowing, the result of that can happen like 2 days after, right? It's not always an immediate thing, but they're starting to pick up on how they feel, what their body's doing. Are they tired? Are they energetic? So a lot of, health practitioners are now recommending that you keep a food and mood journal, which I think is a fabulous idea.
Yeah. I have my clients use them. I have one that I use, and you can get them on your phone now too. And that's one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons why I introduced lab testing into my practice, because that way we can find out if you have food sensitivities. You can actually get tested for it and then just figure out. I had that done many, many years ago, and it was eye-opening. It was like, oh my God, I had no idea that I'm it doesn't mean I'm allergic. I was just sensitive.
Yeah.
But as soon as I cut out those foods, oh my God, it was night and day.
Isn't it astounding the difference that it can make? I had it done, it was a year ago in November. So just a year and a bit, I guess, almost a year and a half. And same thing, I didn't necessarily know that I had sensitivities to some of these things. And I had kept saying to, to my naturopath, I kept saying, no, it's not dairy. I don't suffer from dairy issues. I never feel sick. Like I don't get bloated and I don't have tummy issues. But what I was having, I don't know why I didn't equate the two, was I was having IBS. Right. And I was saying to him, oh, this IBS has come out of nowhere. I have no idea what's going on. And so he said, trust me on this one, Jody, just trust me. Cut out dairy for like, let's call it a week, and then call me and tell me how you feel. Well, within 2 days of cutting out dairy, my IBS completely went away. And I almost cried because I love dairy. I legitimately almost cried, but I do feel better. So,
yeah.
And now that I'm aware of it, I do see what happens when I do ingest dairy. If I have cream in my coffee as a treat, well, I'm going to be coughing up phlegm for the rest of the day, right? I'm starting to equate these things that I've always had, but just didn't connect the dots.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, that was a bit of an aside, but yeah, you can have sensitivities to food that you didn't even know. So I highly recommend having those food sensitivity tests done if you have the ability to do it wherever you live. So now that you know how sugar affects your body, actually, I should ask Renee, how are we doing for time?
We're good. It's 7:36, so roughly about a little over 20 minutes.
Okay,
to
perfect.
Go.
So now that you know how sugar affects your body, you're probably wondering, how you make a difference, how you can get off the sugar train. Surprisingly, Renee and I both went to the same school to obtain our coaching certification. So it's the Health Coach Institute. So a lot of these slides that I have here for you now speak to what we learned as we went through school for those certifications. So these are some suggestions to help you kind of get off that sugar train. So check your bevy. Sounds crazy, but some sweet cravings are a sign of dehydration. And a lot of the time, you may not necessarily be reaching for sugar specifically, but you might be very, very thirsty, but you're not reading that correctly and you're reaching for food. And 9 times out of 10, if you're having that kind of if you're in that space, it probably will be something with sugar in it. So have a glass of water, wait 5 minutes, and then see if you still have the craving. What I've personally found is, and I have had some very intense cravings through my life for sugar. What I found is if I can get through 15 minutes, I'm good. I don't have any interest in it after those 15 minutes. I know everybody has like a different kind of zone that they fall into, but for me, it's about 15 minutes. Also, too much caffeine mimics a blood sugar crash. So you get that kind of high from the caffeine that you would from sugar, but then you come crashing down, and sugar can help make you feel for that short period of time like you're coming up again. So just watch your sugar intake, your caffeine intake, especially if you have double doubles or triple triples, or it's more sugar than drink, for example. You can still satisfy your sweet tooth with sweet veggies, fruits, and spices. Some people might be surprised that spices can actually taste sweet. But when I had stopped eating sugar, the surprising thing that I found is that actual real food, whole food, started to taste sweet to me. And I've never been so shocked as where I took a bite of a cucumber and I couldn't believe, Renee, it tasted sweet. It was cold and it was wonderful. And I thought, I've been missing out on the actual true taste of natural foods because I've been hitting my palate with fake sugar for so long that it became immune to this wonderful sweetness that is in actual whole food. So spices specifically, I love cinnamon. I started adding cinnamon to, like my breakfast bowls or that sort of thing. And it really did start to kind of replace that want or need for sweetness for me. So your
cinnamon in my tea. Cinnamon in my tea did it for me. Like, because I like wine. Yeah, I like wine. So,
oh my God, I love wine.
If I don't really want, because wine is so high in sugar, but yes. A good tea with some cinnamon in it. Yeah, it really helps.
Yeah, and you can train yourself to start craving those things instead of, the sugary stuff. So when you were talking about having that sweet craving after a meal, having a cup of tea with a bit of cinnamon in it, it can actually kind of quash that need for actual sugar and leave you feeling satisfied as well. So your tongue has sweet taste buds that demand to be satisfied. So don't hold out. Don't feel that just because you're cutting back on sugar that your life is going to be bland. That's one thing I cannot do. I love food. Like I love food. And if somebody had told me that to lose weight or to be fit, I had to eat, plain chicken with nothing on it and rice, for example, there's no way that I can maintain that, Renee. There's literally no way. Life and the abundance that is out there in terms of food is too exciting to just like bring it down to something bland. There's no fun in that whatsoever. Nowadays, especially with Google and Pinterest, and my goodness, you can find recipes that cater to anything you're going through, whether you're vegetarian or somebody like me who is trying to cut out sugars, grains, and now dairy. There's still recipes out there that work for me. So start looking into how you can use these different spices and flavors to give your food a bit more taste. But if you like sweetness, then sweet potatoes or yams, they're delicious. And some of the more sweeter ones are carrots and beets and that sort of thing. A lot of recipes that are cutting out the actual processed sugar are using like dates and figs in replacement of those. So you still are going to get a little bit of a sugar high from some of those items, but again, you're getting the fiber. It's going to make you feel fuller longer and that sort of thing. So it's just thinking more about your choices, right? Sleep. This is something that Renee knows a lot about is sleep. For many of us, it's easier said than done. It depends on what you're going through in your life. Sleep can be very elusive, especially as midlife women. If you're constantly tired, your body's going to look for something to give it that boost of energy. Not so much at night, obviously, but certainly during the day when you're exhausted from not sleeping. So you look for sugar or caffeine. I personally have used caffeine pretty much my entire life to get me through an afternoon. So that needed to change because the more caffeine I'd have, the less I'd sleep. So it was just not a good relationship. So if you power down an hour earlier than usual, notice that your cravings will start to disappear, because as soon as you start getting overtired, you're just going to want comfort food and you're going to want something to kind of give you that boost again, right? Is there any questions so far, Renee?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, good. Solution number 4 is check your protein. So here's where it gets a little bit confusing with protein, is if you eat too little protein, animal protein, it can lead to massive sweet cravings, but eating too much of it can lead to sweet cravings. So you have to try and find that middle ground. And not everybody eats animal protein, right? There's lots and lots of people there's all sorts of different ways of eating now, like hundreds of different ways, as we learned, Renee, in our courses, right? There's so many different ways of eating, but you need to find that sweet spot that works for you. And that's where doing those, the food and mood journals are helpful, so that you can start to recognize when you eat this, it makes you feel this way. Solution number 5, sniff out low-fat and fat-free foods, because as we spoke about before, they take out the fat and they add sugar. So make sure that you're aware of what you're buying and what's in it. Solution number 6 is to move. Just move yourself. Movement is another kind of food, in a sense, for your body, because it releases stress. It makes you feel great. It makes you look great. And when you don't get enough, the body starts to look for other ways to blow off steam, like sugar, chocolate bars, that sort of thing. So if you're having a stressful afternoon at work, maybe it might be possible for you to just walk away from your desk for a few minutes. And, in my case, a few years ago, I would do the stairs. I would just go up and down the stairs. I was in like a high-rise building, and I would just go and do the stairs, and I would not go into the kitchen. I would stay away from the kitchen when I was feeling, having a stressful afternoon or what have you. I would do the stairs. And when you're puffing as hard as I was doing those stairs, those several different floors of stairs, you get back to your desk, and the last thing you want to do is eat, because your heart's going, you've got, and I drink water, so I do my stairs and drink water, and that gets me past that craving. Solution number 7, creating new post-meal rituals. So we were talking about this, Renee. If you're a dessert after your meal kind of person, then one thing you might love is the ritual of that. You have your dinner, and there's like that pleasant kind of afterglow, in a sense, of dinner, where you're maybe sitting with your family and you just want to enjoy something. So tea is a great one. I've done that myself. I've like swapped out desserts with having a tea, decaf in my case if it's dinner. But maybe you play with your kids, maybe you go for a short walk around the block, maybe you play with the dog, but try and create something new as a post-meal ritual, so that you can get past that wanting the sugar, right? So here's a little questionnaire for everybody. So of these two vegetables, carrots or broccoli, what would you say has more sugar? And you can answer, Dorothy, if you want to answer in the chat there. Feel free. And I'm just going to start going through these a little fast so we can get to the end. So it's the sugar, or sorry, the carrot that has more sugar. So 4.7 grams as opposed to 1.7 in broccoli. I don't know that that comes as a big surprise because I think most of us know that a carrot almost tastes sweeter, right, than broccoli. Yeah. Here's your next one. So we're looking at orange juice as opposed to apple juice. So I found this one hard to figure out.
This is a hard one. I don't know. I don't know this answer.
You have something in the chat there. I don't know if you can see it.
Orange. Dorothy's saying orange. I'm gonna say, I don't know. I'm gonna say apple. Just because I have no idea. Oh, it is. Oh, wow.
It is apple, and it's surprisingly higher than orange juice. And I think the benefit also with orange juice is if you can have it with the pulp, which I personally never could as a kid. I can now as an adult, but as a kid, I never could drink it with the pulp, but you're getting the extra fiber too, right? But in terms of losing weight, always try to eat the natural product. So instead of apple juice, have an apple. Instead of orange juice, have an orange, because you're still going to satisfy the thirst that you might have for liquid because of how juicy it is. But you're also, again, going to be getting all the extra benefits of the fiber. An apple skin, for example, has all sorts of different lovely vitamins and stuff in it that can really help your body. So, and for example, grapes over raisins. Always pick grapes over raisins if you're going to have, you know, a treat, because raisins are little nuggets of sugar. It's taken all of the sugar in a grape and it's dried it all down to this little sugary nugget that tastes delicious. But the grapes themselves have the juice in them. It will satisfy any thirst you have, and it will also fill you up like 100 times faster, right? Because you're getting that fiber in that bulk. You'd have to have like, God, I don't know, two cups of raisins to replace about, you know, well, you could have about 6 cups of grapes, you know, and only 2 cups of raisins. Let's put it that way. There's something else in the chat here. Okay, so Dorothy, you did say carrots for that first slide. Yeah. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Let's go this way. All right, so Dorothy, are you familiar with Tim Hortons by chance?
She may not be. She's in the States.
Yeah.
Oh,
there are some Tim Hortons in the northern states, but here in Canada, here in Canada, it's everywhere. Like there's a Tim Hortons on every corner, I swear. So this particular slide is specifically from Tim Hortons. So you've got a blueberry bran muffin, or a Boston cream donut. And these are both specifically Timmy's. So we're thinking not so much about like fiber and all that kind of stuff, but about sugar, like which one has more sugar in it?
Oh, it's got to be the donut, but I bet you're going to, I bet it's a trick question.
Yeah, I know. Renee's like, it's got to be a trick question, that one. Oh,
I know muffins are high in sugar, but wow. Okay. That's double the amount. Holy cow.
That's double the amount. And that's not even one of those Gigantor muffins that you get from like Sam's Club or from Costco. This is just a regular Tim Hortons muffin, which is like a fairly normal size. So the reason that I wanted to include these slides is because not all of us are going to immediately go cold turkey and cut out sugar, right? We're not going to just say, okay, tomorrow I'm not having sugar for the rest of my life. It doesn't work that well for everyone. But what you can do is just start being aware of your choices. So if you're still going to have that, if you're still going to go to Timmy's and you're still going to get a coffee, maybe try and get your coffee without the sugar, because cream, dairy has sugars in it. So the heavier your cream, so if you got like, you know, call it whipping cream, for example, not at Timmy's, but if you're at home and you put whipping cream in your coffee as opposed to milk, the whipping cream has less sugar in it than milk does, right? So it's being aware of your choices. So put a little bit of cream in your coffee instead of milk, and it tastes delicious. And in this case, instead of choosing that brand muffin, because I would have thought back in the day that I was doing something better for my body by choosing the Raisin Bran muffin. I really did. I used to get them quite often. I thought, I can't eat a donut. I'm trying to cut out on sugar. Well, it's double the amount of sugar in that muffin. So this is just to make you aware of your choices, that if you cannot just cut it out cold turkey, you can at least make better choices as you go down the path towards better health. Donuts are never going to be a great choice, you guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying go have a donut. But if you are in Tim Hortons and you're going to get a treat, you're determined to get a treat, make sure you know what you're choosing and what's in it. Now, what can you do to prevent a sugar craving? So eat properly, which includes carbs. And carbs are kind of like that fat conversation that we had, Renee, where there's good and bad, right? There's good fats, good carbs, bad carbs. It's a conversation for another day, but just make sure that you do consume carbs. When you cut out carbs completely, carbs are one of the things that helps your body survive, in a sense. Your body needs carbs. So you can get carbs by eating certain fruits and vegetables. Renee, what else can you eat that's a good carb? Like sweet potatoes?
I think, yeah, definitely. I mean, your fruits are definitely carbohydrates. They're going to be more of this simple carbs, simpler than the green leafy vegetables that are more complex, because you're also getting what you want the fiber and the fat with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. So like your green leafy vegetables and your stuff like that, they're going to have.
And when you cut out carbs, you might find that your sugar cravings suddenly jack up. So you're actually making things harder for yourself.
Yeah.
Drinking enough water. Again, a lot of the time that you're reaching for food, you might actually be thirsty. You know, there's a lot of differences out there in the online world as to what the proper amount of water is. My cousin, I don't know if you guys have seen this thing in Walmart. My cousin has this giant jug, like it's giant, Renee, and I've
seen them.
and it has different settings. Like when she drinks the first little portion, it's like, you're doing great, keep going, and the next little portion, and like it's all of these really motivational things. And at the very bottom, if you drank an entire like jug of water, then at the bottom it's like, you did it, like you finished. And I'm looking at that thing of water, of course, and I'm thinking, there's no way. I would just be going to the bathroom all the time. But I bet you my water thingy here, like I bet you if I actually poured that into her jug, it probably would actually be about the same amount. But to me, it seems manageable in this little thing rather than hauling this gigantor jug of water around. But
yeah,
you have to do what works for you. They're really cute. I mean, I think it's really cool that they have these motivational things on the side, and it's working for my cousin. I mean, it is what is getting her to drink, you know, enough water. I personally love water, but some people just can't deal with it. You know, they don't love it at all. So keeping your anxiety and stress low, that will also help your sugar cravings, because when you're stressed, you just want comfort and you want energy. Reducing your alcohol consumption. This is a biggie for me. You know, I mentioned like Renee that I do love wine. But even for me, even having a glass of wine with dinner, I have noticed that on those evenings, I don't always have a glass of wine with dinner, but on the evenings I do, I want to keep eating. Those are the evenings that I'll actually go and have a second helping of dinner. Or as you said, you get that sweet kind of like, okay, now I need something like a cookie or something after dinner. So because I've recognized that correlation between those two for me, then I just try and cut back, you know, how often a week that I drink, and not that it was a whole lot to begin with, but how much I drink as well. Making simple habit changes, you know, like switching out your sweet treat for tea. That's a simple habit change. It does take time. It takes a couple weeks for it to, you know, to kind of kick in, but eating on time. Don't wait until you're starving, because you are likely to overeat. I know I do. Or don't go to the grocery store hungry. That's just a bad idea. I don't do well when I do that. And give yourself time after a meal, about 20 minutes, because it does take your body time to process what you've eaten. So you may not feel full, but you've definitely eaten enough for your body. What can you do when the sugar craving hits? So this isn't about kind of like if you're in the midst of it. So this is after that pre-planning of, you know, I think I want a cookie. This is like when you're actually reaching for the cookie. Go through the kitchen and to the bathroom and go and brush your teeth, because many people refuse to eat after they've brushed their teeth because things taste awful. especially if you go to drink orange juice after you've brushed your teeth. I don't know if anyone's experienced that, but it is not nice. So that's one way you can, after dinner, make it a habit to immediately brush your teeth, because that's a win-win in every way. You're getting food out of your teeth, and even do, like the flossing, the little flossing picks or what have you. Do all that, clean your teeth, and you will be less likely to want to eat. Drink water, obviously. Chew gum. Some people use that kind of as a tool. And, have some protein. If we're not talking like this is dinner time, have a bit of protein. Some people cook extra chicken when they do dinner and slice it up in the fridge. You can have some protein, and busy yourself for about 15 minutes. That's my sweet spot, is the 15 minutes. If I can get into my work, or if I can go throw the ball for the dog, anything for about 15 minutes, and I'm good. I come back in and the craving's completely gone. So just something I wanted to share with you, because the past couple of years have been very difficult for a lot of people globally. That just be gentle with yourself. Take a deep breath and let go of the guilt for not being perfect. You have not failed. What you've been doing is making it through a global pandemic, battered and bruised perhaps, but here you are. Be proud of that. And as I was preparing for tonight, I read this almost from a different perspective, because I had written this presentation a while ago. And I reread this, and my God, it hit home, Renee. Like, for a while there, especially after we had COVID, I was very hard on myself because I'd put on weight. Even though I'm a health and life coach, and even though I know all of the reasons why I'm struggling, this really hit home, because we're doing okay, you guys, we're doing okay. If you've put on a bit of weight, just let go of that guilt and the disappointment and the dislike of yourself, and looking in the mirror and judging yourself. Just let it go. And you can start making good choices one at a time. Don't worry about losing 40 pounds. Just make one good choice at a time, and you'll be good to go. You'll start to notice that you feel better. You'll start to notice that you have more confidence in your own ability to heal your body and heal your emotions. If you're lonely, then reach out to people. If you need to get up and move, do that in a way that feels good to you. Movement does not mean you have to go to the gym and do cardio for 45 minutes. It really doesn't. It could mean taking the dog out for 5 minutes. Pets are goofy. Spend 5 minutes with your pets. They will make you smile. They could get you past a craving, right? So just be gentle with yourself. I think as women, midlife women, we can be pretty hard on ourselves, in my opinion. So that's why we're here. That's why Renee and I do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I resonate with that. I had the same issue through, I had injury plus COVID. I didn't have COVID, but just the pandemic, everything being shut down, being stuck at home, and the gyms closed and all that. I had the same thing happen. And, I'm not one that likes to get on the scale a lot, but you can tell when it's like, oh, I tried to put on a pair of pants. It's
not a nice feeling. It's not a nice feeling.
No, not at all. But it is what it is. So
it is what it is. Absolutely. And there's so many of us that are going through this. And I'm a pretty real coach. Like I don't necessarily have a problem when things go south for me, because I think it's being human. Don't get me wrong, I'm not happy about being overweight right now. But doing things like this, I know all about the sugar because I created the presentation, and because I'm a health and life coach. So one would think that I could feel even more guilty about getting to the state that I'm in, knowing I'm not as healthy as I would like to be or want to be or have been in the past. But when I read what I wrote there, it's as good a reminder for me as for all you ladies watching, that we just need to be kinder to ourselves. There's reasons that these things have happened. There's reasons you've been reaching for the sugar. This webinar was about kind of how to get past those sugar cravings, but there's reasons that you're reaching for that sugar. And again, that's where support systems come in for you, right? Because the emotions and everything are all related, right? Your emotional state, the tiredness, the sleeping, all of these things kind of play into how much sugar you might be eating. So find a group of women who are supportive. Find coaches like Renee and I who are supportive and know how to get you past this.
Yeah.
I've been through it. I've lived through this. I'm living through it again. I'm more than happy to, live through this with anyone needing some help.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, Jody, do you, I don't know if you do a cleanse or a detox, but I run one 3 to 4 times a year. And I just ran my last one. It was in between Easter and the long weekends. So we just wrapped up a few weeks ago. And so I do it almost every time with the group of people, but this time I needed it so badly because Easter came and I just ate and ate and ate every candy that was in my house.
Yeah.
So as soon as I got on my reset, it's a 21-day reset, and cut out, because you cut out the sugars and you cut out gluten and dairy and stuff. And holy cow, like it was like night and day for me. And sometimes I don't feel it as much because I'm pretty healthy throughout, but that
one was a biggie.
It was a biggie for me. It was because, and I think it was just the fact that, you get to the point you're like, nobody sees me. Everybody sees me from here up. I don't I've gone out in a while.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about like not fitting into our pants. Well, the thing is, I've been working from home, which is part of the issue, right? Is you get very isolated, but I've been working from home for, the past, since the pandemic started. We were sent home from work that very first week. And so all of my coaching and all of my work has been from home. Well, I haven't been wearing office wear, I can tell you that. And yoga pants are way more comfortable than, like office traditional, slacks or what have you. So yeah, it's a bit of a shocker when you try to put on a pair of pants that you wore 2 years ago and suddenly they don't fit.
And it's funny,
which is why these cleanses,
and jeans stretch, right? So you get that feeling like, oh, I can still fit in my jeans, but they stretch. Like I'm going to a live event tomorrow, a networking event, first in-person networking event since COVID started.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, I got to put on more work wear. And I'm like,
like
I probably should have checked to see if I have something. I may be wearing a dress. Well, that's not fitted.
You've just done your cleanse, Renee. So, but yeah, I'd love to learn more about your cleanse. When are you running it next?
July. I run it every season. So July will be the next one. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And from my perspective, any of the midlife ladies out there that are struggling, with all that we have to deal with midlife, then feel free to reach out to either Renee or I. You can go, I'll just share my next screen here because these are the different ways that your ladies can contact me.
Yep. And I'm going to post it in the chat because I have your info as well. I usually do that and I forgot. So yeah, you can reach out and do you guys have any questions? Feel free to type them in the chat or raise your hand or whatever, or the Q&A box. I'm going to put some other information in for the next session. And
I even find, honestly, after you do a session like this, that it's after the fact that you suddenly realize you didn't ask a question that's kind of pressing for you. So just reach out, by email, or my email address is there, or you can reach out on Facebook. And I do have a midlife women's group. So it's called Awaken the Woman Within. And I've been a little quiet in the group lately, just as I've tried to heal from long COVID, but I'll get things kind of up and going. And similar to Renee, I'll have guest speakers and that sort of thing there as well. So I'd love to hear from anybody. And there's no obligation whatsoever. This is what I love to do. And everyone that's listening, there's like a free call waiting for you. I'm just on the other end of the line.
And I'll send everybody who's registered, I'll send the email tomorrow with a replay and with your information as well.
Oh, awesome. That's fantastic.
So they have that in their inbox as well. So if there are no questions, I can wrap this up and let everybody get back to their evening.
It's been a pleasure, Renee. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you again, Jody, for coming on for the second time.
You're welcome.
And thank you everybody who's joined tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. So thanks. And we'll chat again in my next session is 2 weeks. So great. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, ladies. Bye.